"Do you want to be my child's father?" she asked. The words cut through the air colder than the gusts whipping across Highway 27. Marcus Bennett didn't flinch, though the wrench in his hand slipped slightly off the bolt. He looked up slowly, his deep brown eyes fixed on her through the steam rising from the engine. In that moment, time seemed to freeze between them. A young black mechanic in a grease-stained hoodie and a blonde woman in a form-fitting dress, soaked through by the rain so that it clung to every curve of her body like a second skin. Emma Parker shifted uncomfortably, suddenly aware of just how drenched her dress had become. It had been dry when she left home, a simple navy sheath dress, maybe a bit snug for a road trip with her son. But when the radiator hose burst and the drizzle turned into a downpour, that dress had pressed itself tight against her hips, her waist, the curve of her back. Now, under the slate-gray sky and Marcus's steady gaze, her cheeks burned. I mean, she stammered, taking a half-step back. "I was only joking," she forced a laugh. "I don't even know why I said that." Marcus frowned ever so slightly, but there was no judgment in his eyes, only quiet focus as he bent back toward the steaming engine. Emma stood frozen, shame and embarrassment flooding her, unsure what to do next. She had never imagined she'd blurt something like that to a complete stranger, especially not under these desperate circumstances. Behind the fogged window, Liam, her little boy, watched Marcus with wide curiosity. His eyes shone as he observed the mechanic's swift yet careful movements. To Liam, the man at the hood looked like a superhero who'd appeared at just the right moment to save them. "Mom," Liam whispered from the back seat, his voice small but clear. "Is he a superhero?" Emma almost laughed at her son's innocent question, but she kept her eyes on Marcus, still kneeling by the engine. She replied quietly, so Marcus wouldn't overhear, her voice low. "No, honey, he's just a kind man who stopped to help." But Liam was insistent, his gaze never wavering from Marcus's silhouette. "He showed up at the perfect time, like a hero, Mom." Liam's words sent another flush across Emma's face. She glanced back at Marcus and realized that, in this unexpected moment, he had indeed become an invisible anchor they hadn't known they needed. The rain pounded harder outside, but deep inside Emma, something new had ignited. A sense of warmth and safety she thought she'd lost forever in all the storms of the past. She didn't know what the future held, but right then, Emma understood that this fateful encounter with the mysterious mechanic would leave an indelible mark on her life. And from that moment on, though neither Emma nor Marcus spoke another word, they both felt destiny stirring, gently but powerfully beneath the heavy rain on Highway 27 that afternoon. Marcus didn't react dramatically but remained meaningfully silent, continuing his work. The steady patter of rain on the pavement beat in time with Emma's awkward embarrassment. He tightened the radiator cap with practiced confidence and decisive movements, his strong hands working smoothly, but deep in his eyes lay a swirl of emotion, a hint of confusion mixed with skepticism, feelings he hadn't let himself feel in years. Emma stood beside him, her breath creating wisps of fog in the downpour. She realized how clinging her thin dress had become, each icy droplet seeping into her skin, making her tremble. She wrapped her arms around herself, trying to hide her awkwardness in front of Marcus. Unconsciously, she braced herself for a rude glance or an insensitive gesture, but Marcus simply turned his face away, focusing intently on the steaming engine. That threw Emma off guard. She'd never met a man, especially a stranger, who was so polite and respectful. Marcus didn't glance at her once, nor did he do anything to embarrass her. That small act of consideration sent a tremor through Emma's heart. It was like a gentle beam of light piercing the fog in her soul, planting a seed of faith that, even in this chaotic, selfish world, there were still truly kind, trustworthy men. From behind the misted window, Liam watched Marcus intently, his eyes widening with growing admiration. For the first time in his life, he felt he was witnessing a real hero, not a comic book-caped crusader, but someone who showed up at exactly the right moment to do meaningful, small acts of kindness. He pressed his tiny hand against the cold glass and whispered, "Mom, he's just like the heroes I read about." Emma turned and offered Liam a gentle smile. Inside her, her shame gradually gave way to boundless gratitude for this stranger. As a single mother, she knew that Marcus's appearance felt nothing short of miraculous. At last, Marcus snapped the hood shut, straightened, and turned to Emma. His voice was soft but firm. "Your car's running okay for now, but let it rest for about 20 minutes. Pushing it too soon could cause another breakdown." Emma nodded quickly. "Thank you so much, really. I don't know what I'd have done if you hadn't stopped." Marcus shrugged lightly, his gaze calm and steady. "I just happened to be passing by. No big deal." He started toward his old pickup, the soles of his boots clicking on the wet asphalt. But Emma didn't want this moment to end so quickly. There was something about Marcus that held her in place, making her want to know more about this mysterious man. "Maybe I could repay you with dinner or something," she blurted out, her voice hesitant and trailing off. Marcus paused, looking back at her. For the first time, a flicker of hesitation crossed his deep eyes, but then he shook his head, his tone remained even. "No need, Miss Parker. I didn't do it for payment." She was surprised he knew her name, then remembered the name tag swinging from her open purse. Marcus's perceptiveness and thoughtfulness only deepened her admiration. Just then, Emma's car door opened and Liam stepped out, splashing in a shallow puddle. His small footsteps echoed in the quiet. He scampered up to Marcus, eyes full of expectation. "What's your name, sir?" Marcus looked down at Liam, and for the first time, a genuine warmth shone in his eyes. He crouched to Liam's level and said gently, "I'm Marcus. Marcus Bennett." Liam beamed. "I'm Liam. Mr. Marcus, are you a superhero?" Marcus let out a soft laugh, a rare but sincerely warm sound that moved Emma. "I'm just a mechanic," he said quietly but firmly. "But sometimes I think being a good person is its own kind of superpower." Those words etched themselves into Emma's heart, leaving an unforgettable impression of this mysterious man. Marcus stood, headed back to his truck, preparing to leave. Emma couldn't help but call out, her next question escaping from the depths of her heart. "Can I see you again, Marcus?" He paused for a moment, turning to look at her through the rain, his gaze seeming to look right into her soul. He didn't answer, but a meaningful, mysterious smile curved his lips. Then he slipped into his truck, and it eased away into the cold, rainy night, leaving Emma and Liam standing there, their hearts racing. Though Marcus had driven off, the echo of that encounter, his kindness to her, his warmth toward Liam, remained deeply imprinted in Emma's heart. In that moment, she realized fate had placed a question mark on the path of her life, something she couldn't easily forget, something that promised to change them forever. Marcus had driven off, but traces of him lingered in Emma's mind, as vivid as rain streaks sliding down the car window. When night fell over the little house where Emma and Liam lived, everything settled back into its usual rhythm. Yet she couldn't shake the strange feeling their encounter had left her with. She gently pulled the blanket up over Liam's chest. He was sound asleep, his breathing slow and steady. In the soft glow of his nightlight, Emma studied her son's innocent face, a wave of tenderness and guilt washing over her for letting a stranger touch both their hearts so easily. Suddenly, Liam stirred, his small lips whispering in his sleep, "Daddy, don't go. Marcus, don't go." Emma felt her heart skip a beat, her eyes widening in astonishment. Her son's words in his dream hit her like an undercurrent, stirring the deepest parts of her soul. What seemed like a random mumble contained a longing, a fierce wish Emma had long tried to ignore. She brushed her fingers lightly across Liam's cheek, her own heart tightening at the chaotic thoughts swirling in her mind. She understood all too well that Liam had always lacked a father figure, and Marcus's unexpected appearance had unintentionally awakened that secret desire in her child's innocent heart. Not far away, under a sky blanketed by heavy clouds, Marcus sat alone on his porch. His small house stood isolated on the outskirts of town, silent except for the occasional chirp of insects in the grass. He rotated a cup of no-cold coffee in his hand, his pensive gaze fixed on the endless darkness ahead. Emma's offhand question from earlier that afternoon echoed in his mind like an obsessive refrain. He'd tried to bury his past, to forget the memory of a father who promised always to be there, only to walk out on him when he was 4 years old. That wound never truly healed. He'd merely hidden it beneath a mask of strength and detachment. His father's image, James Bennett, tall and imposing with cold eyes and a distant smile, loomed in his thoughts as clearly as if he'd never disappeared. Marcus could still hear the slam of the door on the day his father left and feel the icy silence that enveloped him like a frozen blanket. He had grown up believing he needed no one, especially not a father who left irreparable gaps in his life. Yet today, a single, casual question from Emma had shattered the defenses he'd spent years building. Taking a bitter sip of his cold coffee, Marcus closed his eyes and let the painful memories wash over him. He recalled countless hours spent teaching himself to fix everything around the house, from his mother's aging appliances to the broken-down car she left him. He remembered standing at the school gate, watching other fathers pick up their children, the loneliness gnawing at him in silence. But buried among those recollections was one birthday that hurt most of all, his 10th. His father had promised to come home, a promise made casually over the phone that left him breathless with anticipation. Yet, when the sun set, only Marcus and his mother sat in the dim light, a melting cake between them, and that promise remained unkept. That nightmarish image had been etched into his heart like a curse, a warning that trusting anyone could become a mortal wound. So he chose to live coldly, keeping everyone at arm's length, to never feel abandoned again. But tonight, Liam's small figure, his hopeful, innocent gaze, and Emma's sincere, trembling words had unexpectedly stirred something Marcus believed he'd buried forever. He realized he had unknowingly touched a forbidden place in his heart, the longing to truly belong to a family. He opened his eyes and stared into the darkness ahead, his rough hands tightening around the cup. Marcus knew he couldn't run away this time. Those ghosts from his past had returned more powerfully than ever, forcing him to confront himself and decide whether he had the courage to open his heart to what he'd always yearned for, or continue burying himself in solitude and shadows. The sky continued its gentle drizzle as Marcus took a deep breath, trying to push those painful memories back into the depths. But he knew one thing for certain. That old wound had truly awakened, and it would not rest peacefully again. The memories Marcus had deliberately buried clung to him all through the night, seeping into his dreams with vivid persistence. Yet dawn arrived sooner than he expected, pulling him back to reality and the demands of everyday life. Fixing Forward sat modestly on the outskirts of Cedar Grove. No sign out front, no flashy ads, as if hiding itself from the clamor of the outside world. Marcus had always thought of it as his little oasis, where he could quietly do meaningful work without anyone knowing. That morning, the garage smelled of oil, rusted metal, and strong black coffee, the familiar scents that greeted him every day. As he shrugged off his worn jacket and hung it on the rack, the little bell above the door tinkled. He turned, surprised to see Emma and Liam standing there, both wearing warm, tentative smiles. "Miss Parker?" he said, unable to hide his surprise. His eyes flicked between reluctance and awkwardness. This garage was his sanctuary, a place shielded from prying eyes. Having them here made him uneasy. Emma stepped inside, holding Liam's small hand in hers. Her voice was gentle, yet resolute. "I asked around, and learned this is where you work. Liam and I want to thank you by helping out here, if that's okay." Marcus started to refuse, but then he saw the hopeful sparkle in Liam's eyes. That look reached into Marcus's heart, stirring a feeling both strange and familiar. Finally, he nodded, still hesitant. "All right. But be careful. This place isn't for amateurs." Liam whooped with excitement and darted to the corner where the old cars waited for Marcus's skilled hands. Emma looked around and noticed something odd. Every vehicle here was battered and broken, yet each seemed carefully tended, as though Marcus wasn't just fixing metal but trying to heal the invisible wounds their owners carried. She watched him with growing curiosity. "You do all this for free?" Marcus hesitated, then nodded. His voice was low but resolute. "Sometimes the people who need help most aren't brave enough to ask for it. This garage is how I try to make up for that." Emma was silent, her eyes soft with admiration. Before her stood not just a mysterious man, but a deep, private soul who hid his kindness behind a veneer of toughness and indifference. While Emma observed, Liam sat in a quiet corner and pulled out the small sketchbook and colored pencils he'd brought. He watched Marcus's every motion, fingers dancing across the paper. He began to draw Marcus, not just as the stranger the day before, but as a real-life hero with strong hands, eyes shining with courage, and a heart tender beneath a gruff exterior. Marcus glanced over Liam's shoulder. The innocent, childlike rendering flustered him. He'd never seen himself as a hero. In his mind, he'd always been just a lone man fighting the ghosts of his past, determined to erase the scars his father left him. Emma noticed the brief flash of discomfort on his face and smiled gently, stepping closer. "You don't seem comfortable being called a hero." Marcus shrugged and avoided her gaze, replying with self-deprecation, "I'm no hero. Liam just drew what he wanted." Emma's eyes were kind. But sometimes people become heroes precisely because they never set out to be. "I think Liam sees something in you, something you might not even recognize yourself." Marcus fell silent as her words seeped into him like water wearing down rock. He knew what frightened him wasn't Liam's admiration, but the fear lurking deep inside, that if he let himself grow close to them, he might one day face loss again. Yet, as he looked at Liam's trusting face, and Emma quietly sorting his tools without a single complaint, Marcus felt an unfamiliar strength stirring in his chest. It was as if the ice encasing his heart was beginning to crack, letting in light and warmth he'd long rejected. Fixing Forward was no longer just the place where he mended broken cars. It was where he was quietly confronting and repairing the invisible fractures in his own soul. Emma and Liam's presence had flung open a new door inside him, revealing secrets he'd never dared share with anyone. He still didn't know what lay ahead, but in that moment, surrounded by worn-out cars, by a woman whose smile warmed him, and by a little boy who saw him as a hero, Marcus, for the first time, dared to think that maybe opening his heart wasn't as terrifying as he'd always believed. Since Emma and Liam had stepped into the Fixing Forward garage, their weekends had become a quietly meaningful journey, binding three very different souls together. At first, Marcus kept his distance, deliberately hiding any stirring emotions. Gradually, though, he came to accept their presence as an indispensable part of the volunteer work he'd been quietly pursuing for so long. One early morning, when the mist still clung to the winding streets of Cedar Grove, Marcus loaded his old pickup's bed with tools. He glanced back at Emma and Liam, hesitated for a moment, then asked, "It's going to be a long day. You two really want to come with me?" Emma nodded without hesitation, her eyes determined. "We're ready. Let us give you a hand." A small smile flickered across Marcus's face, warming him in a way he seldom allowed himself to feel. The three of them climbed into the truck and headed down the narrow road toward the town's poorer neighborhoods, places life had never been kind. Their first stop was a dilapidated little house tucked beside a pothole-riddled dirt road. An elderly woman, Mrs. Margaret, emerged, worry and relief etched into her features. "I'm so sorry to bother you this early, Marcus. My car died again, and without it, I can't get my granddaughter to school." Marcus patted her shoulder reassuringly, his gaze gentle. "No problem, Mrs. Margaret. I've got this." While Marcus quietly inspected the engine, Emma watched him with admiration. He wasn't just fixing a vehicle, he was restoring faith to people life had repeatedly let down. His hands worked deftly yet carefully. His eyes never left the smallest detail, as if this weren't a job but a sacred duty he bore. In short order, Marcus had the car running again. Mrs. Margaret, overcome with gratitude, trembled as she pulled some meager bills from her pocket. "It's not much, but at least it'll buy you some coffee. Please, take it." Marcus gently closed her hand around the money and shook his head. "Kindness isn't for sale, Mrs. Margaret. Keep this for your granddaughter's school supplies." Emma was struck silent by his refusal. It wasn't pretense. Marcus truly believed in his own philosophy. Each act of kindness peeled back another layer of his tough exterior, revealing a man who'd built walls not to shut others out, but to protect himself from past wounds. As they ventured deeper into the town, Emma saw more of the hardship Marcus quietly fought against. At every stop, he refused any gift, even a bottle of water or a few coins. Once, a middle-aged man named Frank pressed a homemade box of cookies into Marcus's hands, but Marcus declined firmly. "Thanks, Frank, but I don't do this for anything in return. Just promise me you'll help someone else whenever you can." On the ride home, dusk draped the winding path back to the garage. Liam slept soundly, his head resting on Emma's shoulder. In the quiet of the cab, Emma turned to Marcus and broke the silence with a gentle, earnest question. "Why do you do all this, Marcus? A guy like you could have an easier life." Marcus paused, his eyes fixed on the road. When he spoke, his voice was low and tinged with wistfulness. "I was a kid who lived in despair, waiting for help that never came. When I grew up, I promised myself I'd become the person I needed back then. Sometimes saving others is the only way I can save myself." Emma's heart swelled as she realized Marcus was slowly opening the door to his inner world. Each word he spoke was another piece of the puzzle, helping her understand the deeply wounded soul beneath his stoic exterior. Her admiration blossomed into genuine affection for this man. Back at the garage, Emma gently carried Liam inside to rest. Marcus remained alone by the gate, his gaze distant, fixed on some unseen point of his past. Emma approached and lightly touched his arm. "Thank you for letting us come along. I think today was one of the most meaningful days Liam and I have ever known." Marcus turned to her, his eyes softer than she'd ever seen. "The ones who should thank me are you two. You helped me realize that opening my heart isn't as scary as I once thought." Their eyes met, and a profound silence enveloped them. In that moment, Emma understood Marcus was no longer just a stranger. He was quietly weaving his way into her heart, gently but powerfully, like rays of sunlight dispelling the long lingering clouds overhead. Far off, the sun was dipping below the horizon, but Emma knew Marcus's journey of kindness would never end, and from now on, she intended to be an indispensable part of it, ready for whatever lay ahead. After that day, Emma went home with her mind buzzing with thoughts and emotions from the meaningful journey she'd shared with Marcus. That night, after Liam was fast asleep, she sat alone at her desk, the computer screen casting a soft glow in the darkened room. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard as she poured out the truest words from her heart, as if her fingertips were whispering the story back to her. She never intended to share these thoughts publicly, but on a sudden impulse she clicked Post on the Little Cedar Grove community page. She certainly didn't expect that one simple, sincere post about Marcus Bennett and the quiet kindness he'd shown would spread so far. By morning, everything had changed. When Marcus unlocked the doors of Fixing Forward, he froze at the sight of half a dozen local news crews parked across his yard. Cameras, microphones, and reporters swarming all around him with questions. "Marcus, why do you fix cars for free? How does it feel to be a hero in Cedar Grove?" He stood there, blinking against the flashing lights, uncomfortable and annoyed. He'd never wanted fame or attention for his quiet good deeds. His voice was low, edged with cool reserve. "I just do what I think is right. Please respect my privacy." Off to one side, Emma hurried forward, panic and regret written across her face. Marcus looked at her with a mix of surprise and hurt, as if to ask why she'd put him in this situation. Emma's voice trembled as she reached him. "Marcus, I'm so sorry. I never meant for it to go this far." He shook his head, striving to stay calm, though an invisible fear lingered beneath his words. "I know you didn't mean it, Emma, but you don't understand all the trouble this can cause." Turning on his heel, he retreated into the garage, leaving behind curious stares and the buzz of the reporters. He knew that unwanted spotlight would bring problems he hadn't bargained for. Over the next few days, the media didn't let up. Every camera that rolled onto his property felt like an invasion of the one thing he valued most: his simple privacy. Marcus was exhausted and on edge, each lens tightening around him like an unseen noose. Meanwhile, Emma wrestled with guilt. She'd never imagined her innocent post could create so much chaos. Fame had drawn out resentful whispers from people who'd always bristled at Marcus's good deeds. One late afternoon, Emma stood outside the garage, worry etched on her face, when Pastor Harris, a respected elder in Cedar Grove, approached quietly. His eyes were serious as he leaned in to speak. "Emma, you must be cautious. Marcus isn't meant for the limelight. You don't realize how many in this town resent him. When someone's kindness becomes a spectacle, there are always those who will try to destroy it." Emma looked at him, bewildered. "But Pastor, I just wanted people to know how good Marcus is." He shook his head, wisdom in his gaze. "Your heart was in the right place, but this town is more complicated than you know. Some see Marcus's goodwill as a threat. Fame brings opportunity and traps. His warning rang in Emma's ears like an alarm bell. She realized that in her joy at Marcus's story going viral, she'd accidentally unlocked hidden dangers. She felt heavier and more unsettled than ever. That evening, Marcus stood alone by the garage door, his silhouette outlined by the dim porch light. Emma approached him, each step filled with remorse. "I'm sorry, Marcus. I truly didn't know it would get this serious." He was quiet for a long moment, then turned to her, vulnerability and pain in his eyes like she'd never seen before. "I've never been afraid to help people," he said softly, "but I'm terrified of what this fame will bring. I've already lost too much. I can't lose anything else." Emma met his gaze, her heart aching at the depth of his old wounds. She understood then that fame was more than praise. It could be a vicious trap, tangled with schemes and exploitation Marcus never wanted to face. In that moment, Emma resolved to protect Marcus, because she valued him deeply, and because he deserved a peaceful life, where his goodness wouldn't be twisted by others' greed or envy. But as darkness gathered and unseen dangers crept nearer, she wondered whether her determination would be strong enough to help him through the challenges ahead. Ever since the story about Marcus went viral across Cedar Grove, he's felt his life slipping further and further out of his control. Every morning when he unlocked the doors of Fixing Forward, a knot of unease twisted in his gut as curious, admiring, sometimes envious eyes watched his every move. Marcus had never feared attention before, but now he understood why people warned that fame can cast long, dark shadows. One Monday morning, he stepped outside the shop and spotted a small white envelope tucked beneath the door. His hand trembled slightly as he opened it, revealing a hastily scrawled note inside. "Stop playing the hero or face the consequences. Your garage isn't safe." Marcus balled up the paper, tension flooding his features. Those cruel words didn't just awaken a primal fear, they dredged up memories of abandonment and betrayal from his past. He'd never imagined that his genuine acts of kindness could be twisted into a threat. As he stood there, lost in a whirlwind of unsettling thoughts, Emma appeared at the gate. Noticing the worry etched into his face, she hurried over, her voice gentle with concern. "Marcus, are you okay? What happened?" Without a word, he handed her the note. Her eyes widened in alarm, her heart pounding as she read the threat. Emma felt horribly responsible. She'd unintentionally made Marcus a target for the small-minded and mean-spirited in their tiny town. "Marcus, I won't let you face this alone," she said firmly, steeling herself with protective determination. "I'll go to the press myself and set the record straight. I'll do whatever it takes to keep you safe." He met her gaze, gratitude flickering in his eyes alongside fresh worry. "Emma, this isn't your burden. I need to handle this." She laid a hand on his arm, her eyes unwavering. "You don't have to carry it by yourself. I believe in you, Marcus. I won't let your kindness be crushed by cowards." Over the next few days, Emma confronted local reporters head-on, making it clear that Marcus never sought celebrity status. His only motive was genuine goodwill. She urged them to condemn any attacks on him as unacceptable. Her efforts eased some of the public pressure, but anonymous threats kept arriving at the garage. Late one night, as Marcus was packing up his tools, the phone rang, its shrill tone cutting through the quiet. He answered with hesitation. On the other end came heavy breathing and a chilling whisper. "I warned you. Keep playing the hero, and someone's going to get hurt, Marcus. Better stop now, before it's too late." A cold wave washed over him as he gripped the phone so hard his knuckles whitened. He realized whoever was behind this wasn't bluffing. They were prepared to destroy his work, even harm those he loved. Every day the weight on Marcus's shoulders grew heavier. Each morning he woke to a brutal inner battle. Keep doing what's right, or give it all up to protect his loved ones. Sleep became elusive. His nerves were raw and alert. Deep down he knew, if he quit, the bullies would have won. But if he carried on, he risked putting Emma and Liam in real danger. One late evening, Emma found him sitting alone at a small table in the garage, the yellow lamp overhead casting a tired glow on his worn face. She took a seat beside him and spoke with heartfelt urgency. "I know you're under enormous pressure, Marcus. But please remember, you are not alone in this fight. Liam, the whole town, we all need you. Don't let those cowards win." Meeting her gaze, he felt a surge of strength, as though her trust and love had reignited his courage. He inhaled deeply, then spoke in a low, determined voice. "I won't bow to their threats. But you need to understand, Emma, this road won't be easy. There are dangers we can't even foresee." Emma nodded without hesitation, her eyes firm. "I'm ready for whatever comes, Marcus. Just promise me you'll never give up, and I won't ever let go of your side." Though darkness was tightening its grip and anonymous watchers lurked in the shadows, Marcus and Emma had made their most important decision yet. They would stand their ground, no matter what traps lay ahead. Just when Marcus thought the anonymous threats were the worst he'd face, one gray, overcast afternoon hit him with an even greater shock. He had just closed the garage door behind him after another grueling day when he saw a tall, frail figure standing silently at the gate, eyes locked on him with a strange, heartbreaking intensity. Marcus's heart skipped a beat, and his breath caught when he realized it was James Bennett, the father he hadn't seen in over 10 years. James stepped forward slowly, his silver hair catching the dim light. Deep lines carved his worn face, and where once there had been cold steel in his eyes, now only fatigue and regret remained. His voice was hoarse, trembling when he finally spoke. "Marcus, my son. It may be too late for me to say this, but I need to see you one last time." Marcus froze, hot blood rushing to his face as his fists clenched. He couldn't believe this man had the nerve to show up after vanishing from his life so many years ago. The anger he'd kept buried exploded in his chest like a storm. "What right do you have to walk back into my life?" Marcus snarled, pain and fury lacing every word like a blade. "You abandoned me as a child and left me to fight my own battles. And now, what do you want?" James bowed his head, shame and sorrow in his eyes. He said nothing at first, letting the heavy silence stretch on before murmuring in a low, wavering voice, "I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. But I don't have much time left, Marcus. I have terminal cancer. I came not to ask for pardon, but just to see you before it's too late." His confession hit Marcus like a punch to the gut. He staggered back, anger giving way to confusion, pity, and helplessness. Reluctantly, he couldn't deny the shattered old man before him, the same father who'd wounded him so deeply, now facing death. In that wrenching moment, Emma appeared at the garage door, quietly taking in the painful reunion. Sensing Marcus's turmoil, she stepped close and laid a gentle hand on his shoulder, lending him calm and strength. Marcus looked to her, eyes wide with desperation and uncertainty, searching her steady gaze for an answer. Emma whispered just loud enough for him to hear, her voice full of compassion. "Marcus, whatever you decide, I'm here for you. Listen to your heart. Don't let past pain hide who you really are." He drew a slow, shuddering breath, his heart torn in two. Turning back to his father, the fury in his eyes had softened into tears, tears of the child who'd always yearned for a father's love. "Why did you never think of me all those years?" he cried. "Why wait until you're dying to come back? Do you even know how I survived?" James lifted his face, tears rolling down his wrinkled cheeks. His voice cracked as he spoke. "I was wrong, Marcus. I was too afraid to face my mistakes. I've lived in regret and shame for so long. But when I heard about you on the radio, I knew, no matter how late, I had to find you, to ask your forgiveness, or at least tell you I'm truly proud of the man you've become." Marcus stood motionless, his father's words crashing against the wall he'd built around his heart over years of loneliness. His legs trembled, and finally he sank onto the garage steps, burying his face in his hands as emotion threatened to overwhelm him. Emma knelt beside him, her hand still warm on his shoulder. She understood Marcus was facing the fiercest battle of his life, between long-held anger and the quiet hope of healing. James took a cautious step forward, his voice barely more than a plea. "Marcus, I know I don't deserve it now. But please, give me this last chance. Let me leave without this regret. Just once, let me see that my son grew up to be the man I always dreamed you could be." Marcus lifted his head, eyes heavy with conflict and pain, yet glimmering with the faintest hope. In that heartbeat, he realized his choice now would shape his entire future: continue living in rage, or find the courage to open his heart and begin the work of true forgiveness. His father's heartfelt plea echoed relentlessly in Marcus's mind, plunging him into the fiercest internal battle he'd ever known. Sitting quietly on the garage steps, Marcus felt every painful memory of his childhood wash over him, clutching at his heart, forcing him to face them even as they threatened to tear him apart anew. Emma sat beside him, watching with compassion and understanding. She didn't push or try to impose her thoughts on him. Instead, she gently placed her hand over his, offering him her unconditional presence and support. Marcus turned toward her, his eyes still clouded with turmoil, his voice thick with anguish. "Emma, I always thought forgiveness was the simplest thing, but standing face to face with the one who hurt me deepest, it's impossibly hard." Emma squeezed his hand tighter, her tone soft but unwavering. "I know forgiveness isn't easy, Marcus, but sometimes we forgive not for others, but for ourselves. You've spent your life helping and healing strangers. Maybe now it's time to do the same for the people closest to you." Marcus gazed into her eyes, as if seeking affirmation in her very soul. He realized that Emma had stood by him not only through the pressures of the outside world, but also through the darkest ghosts in his own heart. After a long, silent moment, Marcus rose and stepped toward his father. James looked up at him, hope and fear warring in his expression. Marcus's voice was quiet but clear, each word weighed down with courage. "I can't forget what you did to Mom and me. Those memories are etched in me. They were my pain and anger, and they never faded. But I've also come to see that if I hold on to hate forever, I'll never move forward." He drew in a deep breath, his voice trembling but resolute. "You're dying, Dad, and I don't want your last days consumed by guilt. As hard as this is, I choose to forgive you. Not just for you, but for me. I want a chance to live without being haunted by the past." Hearing those words, James's aged eyes overflowed with tears he could no longer hold back. He stepped toward Marcus, voice choked with emotion. "I don't dare demand your forgiveness, Marcus, but hearing you say this, that's the greatest gift I could ever receive. Thank you for giving me this peace before I go." Marcus looked at his frail father, his own eyes no longer filled with blame, but with genuine compassion. He reached out and embraced James, a gesture he never thought he could make after all those years. In that moment, Marcus felt the invisible burden he'd carried since childhood begin to lift. A few days later, Marcus invited his father to live in his own modest home. It wasn't an easy decision, but he knew that the kindness he'd devoted his life to giving strangers should now be extended to his own family. At first, James's presence in Marcus's life was awkward and tentative. But with each passing day, Marcus noticed a growing sense of peace within himself. Quiet dinners and brief, heartfelt conversations began to dismantle the invisible walls between father and son. One late evening, Marcus sat alone on the front porch, gazing at the star-filled sky. Emma quietly joined him, settling beside him with a gentle smile. "How do you feel, Marcus?" she asked softly. He turned to her, gratitude and relief shining in his eyes. "I feel like I can finally breathe, Emma. I used to believe kindness was only for strangers. Now I know that sometimes the greatest kindness is for the ones we love most." Emma rested her head on his shoulder as they sat in companionable silence, watching the vast night sky together. In that stillness, Marcus realized he had truly begun his journey of healing, one he'd once feared and avoided for so many years. Yet, in a distant shadow, a pair of watchful eyes observed Marcus and Emma's every move. The threats had not entirely vanished, and the person lurking in the darkness still schemed to do them harm. But now, Marcus was no longer alone. He had Emma, Liam, and a repentant father striving to make amends. Though he knew more challenges awaited, Marcus had made his crucial choice: to step forward with the courage and genuine love he had rediscovered, ready to face whatever lay ahead without the weight of the past holding him back. Since the day Marcus chose to forgive his father and let him back into his life, the invisible walls around his heart seemed to come down bit by bit. What Marcus hadn't expected was how his relationship with Liam would change. This innocent child increasingly looked to him as a real dad. It moved Marcus deeply, but it also brought a new kind of pressure, testing him with responsibilities he'd never been ready to face. One late weekend afternoon, Marcus and Emma sat on the front porch steps, quietly watching Liam play with his grandfather James in the little yard. Liam's laughter rang out pure and bright, his face glowing with a happiness Marcus had never seen before. Marcus smiled, and then felt a pang of unease. Emma gently touched his arm, breaking the silence. "Marcus, what's on your mind?" He sighed and turned to her, his eyes reflecting complicated emotions. "Emma, I never imagined I'd ever be a father figure to anyone. Liam's already been dealt such a tough hand, and I'm terrified I won't live up to his expectations. I don't want to let him down, or repeat my own father's mistakes." Emma looked straight into his eyes with empathy and absolute faith. "Marcus, Liam doesn't need a perfect dad. What he really needs is you, present in his life, someone who cares, loves him, and will never walk away. You don't have to be anything more than yourself. Just being here every day is enough." Marcus fell silent, letting her words sink in. She was right, but memories of his father's absence still haunted him, feeding that hidden fear. Just then, Liam bounded over, eyes shining with excitement. "Uncle Marcus," he shouted, "Grandpa James told me you were the best mechanic when you were young. When I grow up, I want to be just like you." Marcus froze at Liam's innocent declaration, warmth flooding through him. James stepped forward and patted Marcus on the shoulder, his voice thick with emotion. "I made so many mistakes, son. But the greatest thing I ever did was be your father. Let Liam learn all the best from you, and trust in yourself the way he and Emma trust you." Marcus drew a deep breath, feeling an invisible strength lift him. He bent down and hugged Liam tight, whispering, "I promise I'll always be here for you, Liam." I might not be perfect, but I'll try my hardest to be someone you can be proud of." Liam squeezed him back, voice full of trust. "You're already the best dad I could ever ask for." That evening, Emma invited Marcus into her little home, not as a guest, but as family. Crossing that threshold, Marcus felt as if he'd stepped into a new chapter of his life, one where he wasn't just a helper, but an essential part of this small family. Dinner was warm and easy. Marcus sat next to Emma, across from James and Liam, faces he never imagined he'd come to love so deeply. In that moment, Marcus realized that no matter how hard he'd tried to run from his past, what he really needed was right here before him. Family. After Liam was asleep in his room, Marcus and Emma sat together on the small couch. Marcus turned to Emma, his voice low but filled with sincere commitment. "Thank you for being patient with me, Emma. I know I haven't been easy to love, but from now on I won't run away anymore. I will stay with you and Liam no matter what." Emma smiled softly, her eyes shining with genuine happiness. "You don't have to be perfect to stay with us, Marcus. Just keep showing up. That's the greatest gift I and Liam could ever have." They settled into a peaceful silence, the warm living room light illuminating faces full of hope and love. Though dangers still lurked beyond their door, Marcus no longer felt fear, because he discovered the strength to face anything. That strength came from the little family he once thought he'd never deserve. Marcus never imagined the day would come when he'd step out of the shadows and into the spotlight, with everyone's eyes on him. But since becoming part of Emma and Liam's family, he realized that sharing the message of kindness and healing doesn't have to be confined to quiet, private acts. Sometimes the most powerful things need to be broadcast, to inspire others. One bright morning, Marcus received an invitation to appear on Cedar Grove's well-known radio show, Voice of Hope. At first, he hesitated. Memories of past pressures and anxieties flooded back. But this time, with Emma and Liam standing beside him, their faces full of trust and encouragement, he found the courage to accept. That afternoon, Marcus sat before the microphone in the modest studio, his heart racing as the host's warm voice came over the airwaves. "Marcus Bennett, your story of kindness and generosity has inspired countless people in Cedar Grove, and far beyond. What made you decide to share your journey publicly?" Marcus drew a deep breath, thinking of Emma, Liam, and everyone who'd supported him along the way. His voice was steady and sincere as he spoke from the depths of his heart. "I used to believe that true kindness should be quiet, that helping others was something we did in the dark. But I've learned that sometimes we need to step into the light to show the world that compassion and love still exist. If my story can give someone out there hope or courage, then I'm willing to face whatever scrutiny comes with it." Outside the studio, Emma squeezed Liam's hand as they listened, pride shining in their eyes. Liam leaned in and whispered excitedly, "Mom, Uncle Marcus is amazing, right? He really is my hero." Emma smiled, gently brushing her son's hair back. "That's right, Liam. Marcus is a hero to all of us." After the broadcast, Marcus was no longer just the mysterious mechanic in a small town. His story spread quickly, and calls and letters poured into Fixing Forward from people who had faced their own struggles and found hope in his example. But the spotlight brought more than gratitude. As his visibility grew, so did the threats. More frequent, more direct, and far more menacing. One late afternoon, Marcus found a handwritten letter slipped under the garage door. The words inside were icy and hostile. "Marcus, stop playing the hero or you'll regret it. I won't just go after you. I'll go after everyone you care about, too." Marcus's hand shook as he read it, his heart clenching. He'd borne pressure before, but now he was truly afraid. Afraid for Emma and Liam, the two people he loved most in the world. Emma saw the color drain from his face when he came inside. She hurried over and placed a hand on his shoulder. "Marcus, what's wrong? Are you okay?" He handed her the letter, his eyes full of helpless fear. "I don't know what to do, Emma. I don't care what happens to me, but I can't bear the thought of you or Liam being hurt because of me." Emma read it quickly, her own heart pounding. Then she steadied herself, placing her hands on his cheeks. "We won't let those cowards win. They want to scare you into giving up, but I believe in you. I believe in the power of kindness, and I know that together we can face anything." Marcus looked deep into her eyes and drew strength from her unwavering resolve. He nodded slowly, determination returning to his features. "You're right, Emma. I chose to step into the light, and I won't let these threats drive me back into the shadows, but I'll be careful, because I can't risk losing what matters most, you and Liam." Emma wrapped her arms around him, feeling the steady beat of his anxious heart. They both understood that the road ahead would not be easy, and that unseen enemies lurked in the dark. But this time, Marcus was not alone. He had Emma and Liam, his new family, standing by his side. Stepping into the light wasn't about glory or fame. It was about shining a beacon of kindness and confronting the darkness. Now, Marcus understood that more clearly than ever, and he was ready to fight for the sake of love and for the people he held dearest. Marcus never thought he'd face a challenge he couldn't handle, until one early morning he found a cold, threatening note plastered to the windshield of his old pickup. His heart clenched as he read the malicious scrawl. "Stay away from that family if you don't want something bad to happen to them." He froze on the narrow drive leading into Fixing Forward, a chill racing down his spine. This threat wasn't just aimed at him anymore. Now, Emma and Liam, the two people he cherished more than his own life, were targets of jealousy and hate. Clutching the paper in his hand, Marcus felt his deepest fears roar back to life. Memories of his father abandoning him, the lonely years he'd spent alone, the terror of losing those he loved, all closing in on him more forcefully than ever. He crushed the note in his fist, determined not to let fear swallow him. He knew this wasn't an empty threat. Someone was dead set on destroying the happy life he'd just begun to build. Emma stepped outside and immediately saw the tension etched on his face. She hurried over, eyes alert and concerned. "Marcus, what's wrong? Did you get another note?" He handed her the threatening paper. Anger flickered in Emma's eyes, then turned to firm resolve as she met his gaze without flinching. "We can't let them win by making us afraid. I won't stand by while anyone tries to destroy what we have." Marcus looked at her, anxiety in his voice. "But this time, it isn't just me. Emma, it's you and Liam they're threatening. I can't let anything happen to you two. I couldn't live with myself." Emma placed her hand over his cheek, her eyes fierce yet loving, banishing his fear. "Our strength comes from standing together in the darkness. I won't back down, and I'll never abandon you. If they want to hurt our family, they'll have to go through both of us." The very next day, Emma once again addressed the local media. This time, she didn't merely defend Marcus. She publicly declared their unity to the whole town. "I know some people don't want to see others happy. Marcus Bennett isn't just a good man. He's the heart of our little family. We will not let anyone destroy what we're building together. Any threat against Marcus is a threat against my family. We will never bow to cowards." Her bold statement spread through Cedar Grove. Neighbors rallied in support, showing Marcus he was never alone. Marcus watched Emma stand strong before the crowd and felt, for the first time, the true power of love and solidarity. His old fears began to fade, replaced by a fierce determination. But the shadowy enemy refused to relent. Anonymous late-night calls and more threatening notes came more often. One evening, as Marcus worked in the garage, his phone rang. A hoarse, icy voice growled, "You think the whole town's behind you? Doesn't scare me. You'll pay dearly for your stubbornness, Marcus. I'm not bluffing. Just wait." Marcus stood frozen as fear washed over him. He knew this had gone farther than ever, but instead of panic, a fierce strength rose within him. He was used to fighting alone, but now he had Emma and Liam, the family he'd always longed for. Emma found him standing silent by the car, his face grim. She rushed to his side and asked softly, "Marcus, what happened?" He turned to her, his eyes bright with conviction. "I used to be afraid of facing darkness alone, but now I know I will never be alone again. We'll face whatever comes together, and I won't let anyone harm our little family." Emma nodded firmly and wrapped him in her arms. Though the darkness still pressed in, Marcus knew their real power lay in unity and genuine love. This time, he wouldn't run. He was ready to face the enemy head-on, because he knew he would never be alone on this journey. After all the trials and cold threats, Marcus realized he couldn't keep living in anxiety and fear. Now, with Emma and Liam by his side, the only thing he truly craved was a stable, simple life built on genuine love. He decided it was time to stop running from the past and to open his heart fully to the people he loved most. Marcus and Emma spent several days fixing up their little house in Cedar Grove. They repainted the old walls a soft, pale blue, and Emma and Liam planted flowers and greenery in the front yard, as if sowing new seeds of hope and faith for the future. On warm, late afternoons, Marcus would sit on the porch, watching Emma and Liam working in the garden, his heart filled with a rare peace he never thought he'd be able to know. Yet, even in those peaceful days, Marcus couldn't escape another deep ache. His father, James Bennett, was growing weaker as cancer ravaged his body day by day. Marcus spent as much time as he could at his father's side, trying to make up for the years they'd been apart. Though frail, Mr. Bennett always looked at Marcus with gentle pride and regret. "Marcus, I know my time is short, but I am so grateful that you've given me the chance to see the man you've become. Exactly the man I always hoped you'd be. That's given me so much peace." One late afternoon, James Bennett took his last breath in Marcus's arms, his face serene, as though the weight of his life had finally lifted. Marcus held him tightly, and his tears were not of pain, but of profound gratitude, for the greatest lesson his father had taught him, the true value of family, forgiveness, and love. After the funeral, Marcus stood by his father's graveside, feeling a strange sense of liberation spreading through him. He knew he would never forget the wounds of his past, but he had learned to live alongside them so they could never control him again. Emma and Liam stood quietly beside him, their presence full of empathy and love. Marcus turned to them, his eyes shining with a deeper conviction than ever before. "Emma, Liam, I've spent my life running, but now I know there's nowhere I want to be but here with you both. I don't need anything else, just this little home we're building together." Emma smiled softly, pulling both Marcus and Liam into her arms. Her voice was gentle and full of joy. "We feel the same way, Marcus. This little family is the greatest gift we could give each other." In the days that followed, Marcus and Emma carried on building the peaceful life they had longed for. Their garage, fixing forward, returned to its quiet, simple routine. Marcus no longer cared about reputation or outside recognition. What mattered most was living happily with Emma and Liam in a meaningful, unhurried life. As time passed, the threats and jealousy of those who had once tried to destroy them faded away. Perhaps they realized you can't break a family founded on genuine love and steadfast commitment. One weekend afternoon, Marcus sat on the porch watching Liam play with a little dog in the yard. Emma came out and sat beside him, resting her head on his shoulder as they both gazed up at the bright, sunlit sky. Marcus squeezed her hand, feeling each peaceful, joyful beat of his heart. "You know, Emma, I used to think life had nothing in store for me but wounds and suffering. But now I understand that those challenges helped me see what matters most. Nothing is more precious than love and the presence of the people you cherish." Emma gave a quiet laugh, her eyes sparkling with happiness. "And the best part is you don't have to face anything alone anymore. We have each other, and that's all we need." Marcus pulled Emma in for a tight hug, an overwhelming sense of gratitude for life welling up inside him. After so many trials and losses, he had finally found his true home, one that didn't depend on fame or hollow accolades, but on sincere love and being there for each other at the right moments. As the sun set over Cedar Grove and the sky shifted to shades of purple, Marcus felt his heart completely at peace. Their story might not be one remembered for grand triumphs or glory, but it would always be etched in simplicity and heartfelt honesty. Marcus looked up at the evening sky and whispered in Emma's ear, "Thank you, Emma, for giving me a reason to stop, to open my heart, and to find what I thought I'd lost forever." Emma smiled and squeezed his hand, her voice warm and soft. "No, thank you, Marcus. You gave Liam and me a real home, and that's the greatest blessing we could have." Their story didn't end with a glorious finale, but with a new beginning, one where genuine love was all they needed to move forward, together, forever. If this story touched you, please like, share, and subscribe to catch more inspiring tales. Thank you for being with us.